Hello and welcome to the third Roll20CON. Yay!
Woo!
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I'm Anna Prosser-Robinson. I'm going to be your host throughout this fantastic experience over the next couple days, and we are just going to celebrate the Roll20 community and play tabletop games and watch other people play tabletop games and geek out about how much we love them in this online convention format. And I am so thrilled to be joined by these magnificent people. First off, Adam Koebel, Roll20's GM in residence and creator of Dungeon World. Adam, what do you do? Who are you if people don't know you?
Well, I'm really more brilliant than I am magnificent, but thank you.
My apologies. My apologies.
So modest.
Hi, hello. God, you're so energetic. I'm just like, yes, hello. Stream.
It's morning time.
It is me, your overworked and beleaguered game master. I run a lot of tabletop role-playing games, both for Roll20 app and for Roleplay and for other exciting things like my own channel occasionally, right here on Twitch and sometimes on YouTube by way of Twitch. I'm the co-creator of a tabletop role-playing game called Dungeon World, which is kind of how I got into all of this. But now I just roll imaginary dice and I move tokens around. And I think actually my main job has become teaching people how to do that thing where you click your token and you pick it up and then you hit spacebar. And then you move it and you hit spacebar again and it makes a little trail. I've taught people that probably like 1,000 times, and every time somebody's like, what? I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't know you could do that.
Tune in later for the coolest trick in Roll20. It's called picking up your token and hitting spacebar. I'll show it to you live on my next stream. See, there's always somebody chat's like,
that is going wild over this.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't even matter what you're picking up. It could be an ogre, it could be a goblin, it could be the Starship Enterprise. I don't even care. You just click it and hit spacebar. It's a magic trick. I'll show it to you later. I promise.
There are so many beautiful mysteries to be revealed throughout.
Right? Exactly. Giving away all the good stuff.
I know. Yeah. No spoilers. Come on. All right. And next up, of course, we have Alex, AK, who is Roll20's engagement manager. And if you want to thank anyone for organizing this event, Alex is the one to thank. Alex, what do you do if people don't know you?
I basically do everything that is Twitch and social media related that Adam doesn't do, because Adam produces his own shows. I produce the other shows, and I try to get people together playing tabletop on our channel using Roll20, and, you know, just trying to spread the love, trying to make it all nice and inclusive and happy.
Yeah, Roll20Con's kind of been your baby, right? How's it feel to set it free out into the world right now?
Definitely not anxiety inducing.
Yeah, it's great when you don't feel that feeling at all.
Yeah.
You stop feeling it and we'll never feel it again.
Never feel it again.
Congratulations for overcoming anxiety forever.
Thank you.
Can you please write a book for the rest of us on how to get there, please? Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And of course, we are joined by Nolan T. Jones, co-founder and managing partner of Roll20.
Yeah.
Big boss himself. Nolan, how's it going and how is your mustache?
Yes!
This is it's there. I know I'm thankful the chat is being so kind about it. But at this point it's just stubbornness that the mustache is here. But no, it's things are good. I'm really excited about all the stuff that, you know, every time that we get to this point in the year, just convention season in general, it's like looking back over what's been accomplished in the last year. And I feel really excited about everything we've done and everything that's on the way and all the people that we've added to Roll20 in the past year. So yeah, it's been a ride. So
yeah, this being the third Roll20Con, it must kind of be a moment of reflection for you looking back on the history of Roll20 right now, huh?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always just, it's a moment that just kind of stops you in your tracks and you go, whoa, like, you know, you don't take enough time in doing what we do. Like, we're an ongoing software as a service, right? So what we do is we have to have 99.9% uptime and exist and put out updates and do the thing. And there's not enough chances to just sit back and go, hey, wow, where did all these people come from? What's happened here? And there's something really, really exciting about that. So thanks to everybody, you know, first off, all the new staff, Alex included, that are here and around and pitching in now. But beyond that, you know, it's always wild to just see how much the population has grown. I think we're coming up on 3.5 million users here soon. Wow. And it's just like, what? Like it used to be, you know, a couple thousand back in Kickstarter days, and to see that just slow growth over time is, yeah, it remains humbling and weird. And it's one of those things that it never fully sinks in. You just kind of keep on moving on.
Yeah, that starts to be one of those numbers that stops making sense. You know,
Yes,
that's
it
incredible.
doesn't.
I remember we were doing a post show for maybe Court of Swords, and as you do after a role-playing game, we were like, there's no way that these dice are fair. This is unreasonable. So, as I always do, I'm like, look, all right, here we go. There's a web page for this. So we head on over to the page and we look at it. And I remember the cast being like, there's no way that many D20s have been rolled. That can't be real. I'm like, yeah, but do you know how many people are playing role-playing games on Roll20? Like right this second? It's a lot. Like a lot. I have a hard time getting over it too. I'm just like, this is I wonder how much, and here's a math project, calculate the weight of the number of D20s that are rolled in an average day. Like how much would they weigh if they were real dice and we had them in a container somewhere? How many tons of D20s are there being rolled on? It's like, how much does a D20 weigh? Like not much, but there's, several.
Yeah.
it's really exciting. Like I love that feeling of being like, yep, cool. This is our campaign and it's fun and we're doing it. But like, look at all these other campaigns. Look at them all. Think of all of the people are imagining stuff all the time. It's crazy. I love it. Makes me really happy.
I know we have a lot to talk about what's coming up and how you can get involved in Roll20Con. But before we do, I hope you guys don't mind. I just want to ask the question of why Roll20Con? Why do we need to join together and celebrate this way? What is it that this accomplishes? And what are you guys hoping that people will take away from Roll20Con?
I think it's always been a community celebration. And it's one of those things that from the very first go round, we knew that we were kind of splitting in directions by streaming at the same time that we were also asking people to play. But it feels very convention-like in that way. You know, there's panels going on, but at the same time, somebody's hanging out in the hallway playing games. And so to me, it's always just been a chance to sit down and, I don't know, get as much of the band together as can get together over a random weekend and party. And I think that every year it's been a different look at a different feel to that. But I think that's fun in that, you know, there's so many facets and so many different folks in the community that it allows, I don't know, it takes such different angles in terms of what the casts are throughout the day, and even to just how the community engages with the themes of the year. I think that the first year was the spotted handkerchief and some goofy stuff, and this year where everything's the fun in the sun style theme. And it's been fun seeing, like, going through the looking for group and seeing what people are already planning with that. I don't know. It's always something different, but I think as a community is expanding and growing, there's no way around that, and it's kind of fun to just lean into that and reflect on how much it's different between years.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what people will do. And people can get involved. It's not just a watching experience, Roll20Con. It's something that you can actually participate in. So let's talk a little bit about how the viewers can get involved. First, I know that they can use Roll20CON2018 to tag their games. Alex, if people are like, what do you mean tag my game? How do I do that? What do I do? Can you give any instruction on what that means for someone?
Yeah, so once you log in and you create a game, you are able to tag it. And one of the tags we have this year is, and it will come with a little image attached to it, is a Roll20CON2018 tag. So once you do that, there's one more step you need to follow in order to be able to access the extra features that we're giving this year. This year, you're going to be able to use dynamic lighting for free in your games, which is usually a plus subscription feature. And you're also going to be able to have no ads on your games, which is also a plus subscription feature, which is a monthly subscription that we have. So if you tag your game, and when you list it, you list the game to be played between the days of today, Friday 22nd, and Sunday, even though there are no streams on Sunday, up to Sunday midnight. I guess it's technically Monday midnight.
I'll bet $20 that we don't turn it off at exactly
midnight. Well, I mean,
you didn't hear that from me,
technically. So yeah, so if you schedule it anytime between like from Friday to Sunday, then these features will be available to you. And at that point, you can just put it out there, looking for group, and people will find you by clicking in the search, the looking for group tool listing. You will see the tag Roll20CON2018, the little golden image, and you can just click that checkbox and it will show you whoever's playing games for Roll20Con. So you should go ahead and do that, actually.
Adam, as the GM in residence, can you explain why someone maybe would be excited about playing with dynamic lighting for the first time?
I back before I was super familiar with Roll20, I was like, oh, dynamic lighting, that seems interesting, but didn't really like pay a ton of attention to it. And then I actually sat down and I picked up a token and I was moving around. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest shit of all time. Like it's one of those things where we've been doing the kinds of things that dynamic lighting does in our heads playing D&D forever, right? And you can see, you know, pictures of old D&D tables with people covering the map with paper and like trying to move it around. And now a computer just does all of that stuff just for us. So it's really cool being able to watch. And I love doing this. I'll watch my players' faces for the first time. Be like, all right, you're in the dungeon. Here's your tokens. So like, well, we can't see anything. I'm like, it's cool. You're in a little room. Let me just open this door. And it's like, whoosh, the whole thing appears and they just flip out. It's so much fun. So it's a really cool feature for kind of easing the GM's responsibility for like, okay, you see these goblins, but not these goblins.
Right.
And like, you can see this part of the room, but not that one. This way, the VTT will just do it. It'll just be like, here you go. You see this thing. And you can watch the characters and the players change the way they like tactically involve themselves in the situation. We're like, okay, I can't see. I got to move around this pillar so I can get line of sight on this guy. And it's really fun. So if you're already using like map exploration or you're using kind of tactical combat with tokens and you haven't tried the lighting, now is the time. Get that dynamic lighting on. Go and do it because it's very cool. I think it's an unsung hero for the GM. I think until you see it in action, you can't appreciate it until you get to play with it.
I think to Adam's point too, it's one of those things that there are so few. All of the advantages are to the in-person table. We know that playing online like this is not necessarily the best way to do it. That's what some of us have to do. And this is one of the few areas that we were able to leverage the advantage and do something wild. It's one of the few things that you couldn't do at an actual table. And by that, it's been, it continues to be one of the coolest features that we've come up with in our time doing this. So,
yeah, I've even seen people use that feature at the table. You know, that like that's something that they bring to their actual physical table because it allows them to do something more. So. Awesome. Well, remember, all you've got to do is use Roll20CON2018 to tag your games, and you will get that free dynamic lighting and no ads. And we're just getting started. We're going to have lots of streaming content as well. So when you're done with your game, or if you would rather watch, don't worry. We have tons of stuff coming up for you Friday and Saturday. The schedule is below our faces down there in the channel description on the Twitch channel. But let's give you an overview of some of the highlights. Adam is going to be GMing 2 games that you can watch. Adam, tell us about your games.
Man, I love it. I love it when you use my name and highlights in the same sentence. This is great. We need to have more of these streams where people just say nice things about how great I am.
Right, brilliant, magnificent. I'm learning.
I feel like it's going to be highlight content. Yeah, it's exciting because I get to both. I'm playing with some familiar faces. Right, I get to play with Blue Jay and Human Dave, who everybody loves. But I also get to play with some new folks. And I did this thing that people who are fans, this is great. People who are fans of like role-playing games and who are role players themselves will do this where you like watch all your friends. And as soon as they show any interest in a role-playing game, you're like, come here. So I saw my friend Starbuck, call me Starbuck. She played her first game of Dungeons and Dragons like 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, it's on. You did it. You opened the floodgates. Get in here. So I'm playing a game of Masked with her and Dungeon Commander, both players I haven't played with before, and a couple of folks from Roll20 as well. So today we're playing World of Dungeons, which is a stripped down, simplified version of Dungeon World, designed by John Harper, which I'm really excited about. This game we only really managed to like finalize the schedule yesterday. So I picked the game to explicitly be something that we can just make up as we go along. Both of these games I'm going in like no prep at all. So we're just going to kind of be like, all right, let's make characters. Let's make up the world. We got 3 hours. Let's go on a very truncated, very exciting adventure. So we're going to jam a bunch of content in there. And then tomorrow will be superhero time with masks and with both those new players. So I am super excited to take a little break from my usual campaigns and do a couple of quick one-shots.
If someone has not heard of Masks before, can you tell them a little bit about that game?
Yeah, so Masks is it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game. It's been out a couple of years. It's a superhero game, but in the way that all superhero games and shows and comics aren't really about superheroes, this one is also not. It's about, you play teenage superheroes. Basically, you're like the new generation of superheroes, and you struggle with your own identity and the way that people see you as both a teen and a public figure. So they're going to be fighting supervillains and trying to save the city, but also dealing with the way that the media and their friends and other people around them see them and kind of their identity as super people. It's a game I've run a couple of times before. We did a couple of one-shots for roleplay, and it's always a super good time, especially for a shorter session, because you can really do kind of like a graphic novel's worth of stuff. You can one arc, and yeah, it divides really nicely in the way that for a tabletop campaign, you'll have sessions, you'll have adventures, you'll have campaigns. Masks breaks down really nicely into sort of issues. And for me, as a very sort of narrative, like the way I describe things, I try to pull us into the milieu of the fiction. So I'm going to be describing the action as panels and special effects, like we were designing a comic book together. So I think people will have a good time watching that. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait. And remember, again, the schedule is below us. If you forget, mark it down on your calendar, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. We're also going to be today having a live demonstration of the new Character Mancer, which I'm really excited about because I get to actually create a character with this. Nolan, what's Character Mancer?
So Character Mancer is a new thing. We've been working on this for 9 months quietly. And so it's really,
like a baby.
Yeah. And it is super exciting that Tuesday is finally the day. But the piping on this took a really long time because we were trying to figure out a way. So there's a whole bunch of character creation softwares out there. And in everything we try to do, we try to be more of a virtual tabletop, a platform. We try to be system agnostic and not just do one thing. And so we tried to figure out a way that we could organize all this different data. And so if you think about 2 or 3 different tabletop games and just the differences in terms of what you're being asked in character creation, whether it's strength and dexterity stats in this game, or whether it's bonds in that game, or any number of elements there, and how we would sort and present those within a sheet that could actually do something creative and pull in from sources. So this was the initial charts on doing the data for this that our lead developer, Steve, put together with our production lead, Trivia, are some of the wildest. Just like it's terrifying. It looks like that screenshot of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's like, look at the lines between the things. It's terrifying. And it took a really long time to figure out. And the result of all that work is that now somebody can go in to make a character and it takes 1 minute. So right now we've gone ahead and we've done the heavy lifting on doing from that base, from that foundation that we set up with the sorting. We're launching with a version that does 5th edition and allows you to create a character for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. But this should be usable for anything that's playable on Roll20 where somebody's made a character sheet. We'll need to be adding more compendium data and stuff like that to pull from to make the choices in it. But we've got a lot planned with this that isn't just Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a really, really cool thing. And it's one of those our controller, Austin, we did a demonstration internally the other day, and we got done with the demonstration afterwards. He's like, I don't know what I was expecting, but that was more incredible than what I thought was going to happen. It's a really wild, just the time saving in it. I think it's going to be a really great way to introduce a lot of new people to the hobby. And I'm really excited to do it for a variety of games over the next few years. So
being able to make a character in 1 minute is a pretty big statement to make.
Right. And that's literally right now, Soraya, our brand manager, is working with somebody and putting together a 1 minute trailer that just demonstrates, yeah, you can actually plow through it that fast. It's absurd. And
we're able to make the technical process of making a character faster, but we cannot help you decide what class any more quickly. If you don't know what kind of character you want to be, we cannot help you with that. But once you decide, it's very fast to actually do the thing.
Adam is calling me out so much right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like everyone's talking about, like, yeah, you can do it really quickly. And when we went through the first demo, I got to see it for the first time. I was like, yeah, that is really fast. But I'm like, but like players are very slow, so it's nice to have that speed when you're ready. And if you're like Sean Plott, if you're like Day 9, you can just randomly choose things from the drop downs and then just hit go and you're done. And you're like, there's your character. So it's a useful tool. And I think it actually will encourage people to experiment with making characters more, because it takes away that it's going to take you an hour to make a character kind of like fear that especially new players can have. They're like, I don't know which like where to find this information or like what things are options. So just being able to click and say, okay, here are the 12 or 15 or 20, depending on your game. These are the things that I can play as. Cool. I'm going to pick this one. Druid sounds cool.
Right.
I mean, it also displays on the side, whatever you click on, it will display the flavor text from whatever book you're using. So it'll just tell you, you can go through it and read through it and be like, yeah, that sounds like me, or that doesn't sound like me. But the 5-minute thing, like, I believe it, but it just takes hours for me personally.
Well, Alex had me like start the process this morning, and the only thing I had to pick was a name. And even that was just like, you want me to pick a name at this time in the morning?
But the name you picked, I think, is pretty good, and you should stick with it.
We landed on Chris Hemsworth, and then she wouldn't let me change it. So
It's fine if you spell it like the fantasy way with lots of like quotation,
like add a Y here and there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apostrophes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to have Adam GMing some games. We're going to have this demonstration of Charactermancer. And then also, really important to know that donations during this event will go to Take This, which is a charity that many of us are pretty familiar with it here in this space. But Alex, if people aren't familiar with Take This, tell us a little bit about it.
Take This is a really good charity that I think was funded in 2012, and they do something, the way I got to know about them is if you go to cons and you see something called an AFK room, that's them. They have these rooms that are more than just silent spaces because they staff them with volunteers and clinicians and like professionals in mental health. And if you need a break or you need to talk to someone, you're going through some stuff, you can just go into that room and just kind of relax and talk through your problems or your anxiety. Which I think is really important, and we don't do enough at cons in general. And since this is, you know, an online con, we thought it fit the theme of like, a lot is going on right now. Let's think about our mental health so we can keep going. And Take This has been doing that for a while and in a very effective manner. So you can donate to them. You can buy the t-shirt. Just scroll down. There's a button right there that says donate to Take This. It'll take you to our donation link. And if you want to buy the t-shirt instead, that's also right under us. So scroll down and give them some money. They deserve it. They do real good work.
Tell us a little bit about the art that's on this t-shirt too. This art is amazing.
I love the art so much. The artist is Alexandra Douglas, Lexercise on Twitter, and y'all should go follow her. I basically wanted a nice, because yesterday was a solstice, the summer solstice. I wanted like a really nice, breezy, summery image to go with our theme this year, because our theme for Roll20CON this year is sun touch. So anything that the sun has touched, burned, melted, an angelic form, you know, sun touch, as opposed to like, I don't know, demon touched or something like that. So you can just get creative with it. And she went ahead and made this beautiful, beautiful piece that has sci-fi elements in it. So you can see that goblin down there, which I thought was a goblin, is in fact an alien because he can't breathe on Earth. He has his like little helmet on. And you can see our big and beautiful, I think that's an orc. Don't ask me. I don't know races. I don't see races. I see people. So yeah, orc and the tiefling in the back with the crop top and our pink dice. It's just all so relaxing and beautiful and just sunny, and it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's awesome art and for a great cause. So remember, if you want to donate, you can click to donate, or you can purchase one of those t-shirts with the amazing breezy art. Hopefully you guys will be inspired to have lots of great beach episodes happening this week. I can't wait to hear about your adventures in the sun.
Also, there's a marketplace pack that has various themed elements within the sunny theme. If you're looking to add that to your game, and that's something that can be obtained by donation, I put the link for that in chat. And the artists on it really, they had a lot of fun with the theme and joined in a way that I think is just the orc in amazing beach surf shorts is enough.
People are really into those orcs and bathing suits, man.
It's so funny. Like, I can't get over how funny it is.
It's
and all the elves with sunglass tans, amazing.
And the sunny corgi. Yeah. Is that you? I bet it's you. It had to be you.
I didn't do it.
How could people find that if they're not familiar with that process?
So
I went ahead and pinged it in the chat. If you !donate, you'll get up a link that'll take you to the pack page. And what you need to do in order to get the pack is please do this first. Sign in to your Roll20 account first, then donate, and it'll be automatically added to your account.
Gotcha.
Sign in first.
And then
Always sign in.
Go and follow all those amazing marketplace creators who are linked in the pack. They are rad folks, and we're very thankful for them chipping in this way to make the donations move. So it's
Awesome.
cool.
All right, so those are kind of the highlights we wanted to give at this top level. And I know we have a bit to kind of just jam about tabletop and chat. But before we do, anything else that you want people to remember or know about Roll20Con as we kind of begin the event?
Yes, never forget Nolan's mustache.
Yes.
Hashtag Nolan's mustache 2018.
Hashtag Nolan's mustache 2018.
Don't give it its own hashtag.
Yes, give it
Please
its own
don't.
hashtag.
Stash tag? No.
Done been
Stop.
given.
Nope, you ruined it. All
Nolan
right,
will be
everyone,
stepping
please
down
tag your
from
tweets.
Roll20
Hashtag.
this weekend and being replaced by our new head operator, Nolan's mustache. Rest in peace,
Why
Nolan.
is it in charge?
It's a good stash, Nolan. No,
That is
I can't
the
lie
best.
to you. I'm sorry.
Thank you for keeping honest. Don't lie. That's not what we do here.
Well, I suppose that's as good a segue as any to talking about role-playing games, about tabletop. And I'm really excited about this because when you invite me to be a host and you're like, hey, we're going to cover these things and here are your talking points. And then you're like, and then just talk about how great tabletop and role-playing is. I can do that for hours. So I'm stoked about this segment of the programming. And we're going to start by talking a bit about tabletop and streaming, which is actually one of my favorite topics in the whole world as someone who works full-time for Twitch as a producer and also has been streaming tabletop games as long as I've been playing role-playing tabletop games. In fact, my first Dungeons and Dragons experience ever was live streamed, and I've been live streaming Dungeons and Dragons since then. And so I love to talk about how streaming has affected tabletop role-playing and vice versa. And I'm really interested in your guys' take, especially on kind of the emergent art form, if you will, if you'll go that far with me on the kind of collaborative storytelling that happens with role-playing games. And I'm sure, Adam, this is something you probably have a lot to say about.
I actually don't know anything about this topic at all, so I'm just gonna go now. I mean, like, obviously, like for me, I have a very similar experience in terms of I'm sort of the inverse. I've been playing role-playing games for basically ever.
How old are you, Adam? Does anybody know?
Wow,
That's very
Seven
forward.
information.
It's very forward of you.
Wow. Do you also want to know where I live? Do you
Yes.
need to know my phone number? No. Get out of here. Stop it. Yeah, I've been playing role-playing games for more than 2/3 of my life. And I only really have been doing that online for about 3 years now. My Twitch experience with RPGs and my experience with Roll20 overlap 100%. The Venn diagram is just a circle. And yeah, for me, it's been really interesting seeing the way that I GM shift and the inclusion of the idea of an audience as, if not an active participant, but something that I am very much cognizant of while I GM. Like, I know that there is an audience there. I read chat while I play. I feel really weird when we do shows where I don't have access to chat during the show, because it's like being, for me, it's like being a comedian with no audience, where you like make a joke and then you're like, okay, was that funny? I don't know. I can't tell because the audience is in another room watching me on TV. So having chat is a really great way for me to gauge kind of like investment if people are like enjoying it. Like, I'll start describing a character or I'll start like playing a role, and if chat gets really excited about them, then they immediately become more important to me, because I'm like, oh, people are digging this character. They're going to have a bigger role in the game than they would have if chat was like, okay, cool. Well, the shopkeeper
Let's
move on.
This is how Soren happened, isn't it?
I mean, Soren, the players hate that they love him, so he became more, Yancey, Soren. Every campaign has a couple of these, but I think that it happens to players too, right? Like with the Roll20 Presents Tomb of Annihilation, we have all kind of accepted that Elf's character, Yishi, is the main character of the game. Yishi is the protagonist of that series. And we've all just kind of been like, okay, cool. This is the Ishi Snaggletooth show, and we will be supporting characters in that show. But I think it happens the same way that it does with like TV, where the writers will give more screen time to the characters that are more popular, and it just sort of builds thematically around that stuff. And that's very, very different from the way that traditionally role-playing games are played.
It's funny you say that, because another GM that we have here on Roll20, Bronze, is actually the complete opposite. By the way, today's Bronze's birthday. Happy birthday, Bronze. Yeah, so the way she plays is no one can look at chat because you need to focus on the game. And she will get, actually, she will not, as far as I know, she'll be like, you can't look at chat if we're playing together, especially if it's going to distract you. So it just kind of depends. I guess some people don't like really want to get invested in the narrative, and some people are more into the performance side of it. But I understand both.
Yeah,
both
well,
sides, man.
I think that they like the idea of, like, yesterday I was running a game of Dungeons and Dragons. We were doing an episode of Core Swords, and one of the players, Max, his character was off doing some other stuff, and when he wasn't on screen, I could see he was in the chat engaging with them like as a fan, where like cool things would happen, and he would post like memes in chat, and he would be part of that audience. And I think that this is something that's always been true of role-playing games, where we are acting both as projectors of the narrative and recipients thereof. But now we also have this additional group of 10 or 100 or 1,000 people who are there watching and participating with us and get excited in that way. And so we can kind of flow back and forth between them. And for me, it's really freed up the games to be not like the idea of keeping the party together has become less sacrosanct, because if you are not participating actively in the game, you're still you move into that audience space. And this is what makes Burning Wheel work for us for that campaign, because it's essentially 4 different games most of the time. The characters are very independent. They have their own stuff going on. So it's really cool to be able to be like, all right, I'm going to spend half an hour with Dave. And while I'm doing Dave's stuff, my other 3 players, they're still engaged in the game, but it's not like they're sitting at the table staring at me and Dave. They're talking with the other people in chat, and they're engaging as a member of the audience. And then they can jump back in when it's their turn. And I actually find it less distracting online, because people at a table, if somebody gets bored and starts looking at their phone, or like goes to the kitchen to microwave a snack, like that can be very distracting. But when we're playing online, literally the only difference between me paying attention to this thing and me paying attention to this thing is the angle of my head. So it's much easier, I think, to keep it in focus, and they can communicate and they can talk to each other and still participate in the stream, but in this different way you really couldn't do at the table. I think it's very expanding of what it means to participate in a role-playing game now that we have this kind of additional audience role. It's very cool and very exciting. I'm all about it. I love it. I love the audience. I want them to participate in their own special way in every game that we have.
I feel that too. Yeah. Go ahead, Nolan.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the things, we're talking about this from the high level pro angle, and I think one of the things that's most interesting to me, and I think is most essential in what Roll20's success has been, is the amount of empowerment that the Let's Play movement has given to people to pick up the hobby and to try it for the first time. And the amount of content that everyone here has been a part of making, or that we see from everything from misclicks and role play up through Critical Role. There is the idea of here's a book and we're supposed to play this game together, and I don't know how to do it and I'm embarrassed by it, goes away after you watch other people and you go, oh, they're just sitting around making jokes. I can do this. I can join in on this. And I really do think that Twitch has played such a central role in I don't know, just allowing people to be like, this is a hobby that I want to be a part of. This is something that is accessible to me and I can see myself in. And I think that that's been a really, really cool evolution over the past, we think about how long ago did Twitch start versus how long ago was the internet really good enough to do the streaming video and stuff that we're in right now. And that evolution is a very short time. I mean, I remember the first times that we were using Roll20 with Google Hangouts, which is something that's no longer even offered as an integration by them. But you had to refresh the screen every 30 minutes because the audio and video would get out of sync. things have changed just so fast technologically in these past.
I mean, I think the big thing that has changed, and it's a bit disingenuous to look at like Critical Role or Role Play or Dice Camera Action as being like really forerunners in any way, because this actual play and the presentation of actual play thing has been going on as long as tabletop role-playing games have existed, right? Like Alarms and Excursions back in the 70s had like reports like, here's what happened in our Dungeons and Dragons game last year, and they'll lay out all these details. I remember as a kid reading BBS posts about people's campaigns and getting excited about that. And then as the technology has built, right, we got into like audio actual plays, right? Lots of actual play podcasts. But I think what Twitch has done, and I think this is a big deal, is put the theatrical element, right? Put a face to the sound and to the stories, right? It's different. Reading someone's text is very different than watching them in action in the moment, live doing the thing. There's also a hell of a lot more money in it now. So a thing like Critical Role is actually worth, like, you can get money back from that if you put money into it. There are people who are getting interested in it in a really big way, and people are super excited to engage in that. And it's just building on itself. It's crazy the way that both role-playing games have bolstered people's interest in Twitch and in live streaming, but also in how live streaming has bolstered, like, just ask how Wizards of the Coast, how's D&D doing this year? How's sales? Like, it's great. There's so many more people playing and getting interested in role-playing games than there have been in a very long time, and it's really super cool being part of that.
I think, you were talking about how you can engage with the chat during the show and how they impact. But I think one of the coolest things about not just Twitch, but the overall interconnectivity of the current tech sphere, I guess, is that it also includes a lot of people who maybe want to play in different ways, or, maybe I don't have a game that I can get involved in myself, or maybe I'm not really comfortable playing, or maybe I'm not even that interested in actually rolling dice, but maybe I'm an artist and I really like bringing scenes to life, or maybe I'm a musician and I like scoring things, or I like writing my own versions of scenes that happened and I can contribute those. I think for me, that's been the coolest part of a show like Dice Camera Action, where I'm getting inspired by people who are playing with us through their expression, and not even in real time, not even during the show. But and I think it's really cool too that the community has stood up in many times of, like, someone will pop up and be like, gatekeeping, are you a real player of role-playing games? And we'll be like, no, there's no way that you have to engage in order to be part of this community. You engage however you want, and we're all here playing together. And I think for me, that's the coolest part of this whole what would you call it? The let's play movement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's asinine to try to claim that the only way to be a part of tabletop role-playing games is by playing them. That's like saying
those asses exist.
Yeah.
Well, it's silly, because it's like, that would be like saying to someone, like, the only way that you can care about professional basketball is by being in the NBA.
Exactly.
If you're not in the NBA, you don't care about basketball. It's like, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I think there's a joy in watching other people do a cool thing that you are interested in any way, whether you're like, I could do this, I am watching for inspiration for my own thing, or if it's just like, yo, they're really good at this and funny and this is interesting. And yeah, it's also a role-playing game, but I'm more interested in them, like, making up these stories. And like you said, I think that the world of a tabletop role-playing game, whatever campaign you're playing, the world is very, very large. And there's a lot of space in that world for people to do things that the GM and the players may not be directly attentive to, right? Like, I might, in passing, describe an NPC from a place we've never seen that I'm not particularly interested in highlighting right now in the campaign, but guaranteed there will be someone in the audience who is like, oh, that is very cool. I'm going to design an entire wardrobe for the culture of these people that you described once in passing.
Yeah.
And for me as a GM, there's this reciprocal feeling of inspiration where I will mention something, someone will run with it and make something cool. I will go back and look at it and be like, oh, I'm actually more interested in that now because you've fleshed that out.
Right.
And then it'll get into the game more, and then more people will get excited about it. And it's really exciting to be able to be a part of that communal energy. And the energy isn't just, I'm at the table playing a character rolling dice. It's, I'm contributing to the overall sphere, the community artistic sphere in this really powerful way. And there's lots of different ways to do that. And I think that's super cool.
Well, one way that you have actually contributed to the overall, ecosystem, if you will, or, you know, the narrative of tabletop role playing is that you designed your own tabletop game. You're an award-winning tabletop designer. So Adam, I want to pick your brain as kind of a historian as well about the state of tabletop role-playing in general right now, as relates to what we were just talking about, or even overall. Where are we in kind of the narrative of these things developing? Where do you think we're going?
Well, I think more people are getting interested in role-playing games than have been since probably the early 80s, right? Like we kind of forget that we're at the top of a wave, but there's been one before. There was a time where they were considering making a Dungeons and Dragons theme park, and there was a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and TSR was making a fair amount of money off of the property of Dungeons and Dragons.
Are you just gonna gloss over the movie, Adam?
There's all kinds of, well, no, but see, the funny thing about the movie was an attempt to rebuild that space. It was after the wave had broken, right?
That's true.
This was the like, hey, you guys remember Dungeons and Dragons? It's not dead yet. Here's one of the Wayans brothers and a film.
And we killed it. No.
And then So there was a time, but what was interesting was that time Dungeons and Dragons was explicitly, they made a choice to say, okay, D&D is going to be aimed at children. Kids love adventure and bullshit, and we're gonna aim our property at them. And I think that it worked to a degree before that whole thing came apart. And then we went into a deep kind of role-playing game recession where it was not a big thing for most people. There was a lot of stuff going on, but it was at a much lower popularity level than it is now. And we're seeing the beginning, I think, of that wave again. And I'm very curious to see how far it goes. I think people right now, we're in a very D&D centric space where a lot of people are like, role-playing games are Dungeons and Dragons, and this is what that looks like. And if you want to play a role-playing game, you got to be an elf or a cleric or a wizard. And I think that that's great. That's really cool. D&D is a great place to start, but I think what we're going to see in the next few years is people learning that there are other games that they can play beyond Dungeons and Dragons. D&D will continue to be the main thing because that's where all the money and the popularity is at. But we're going to see more and more people getting involved in other smaller games. And there will be a moment where I think people realize like, oh, hold on, you don't have to make Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder to make a role-playing game. Some role-playing games are only a couple of pages long. Some don't have art. Some are simple, right? You can make your own thing. And that's when things are going to get really bananas, right? When people start to realize that and build their own stuff.
That's happened before. You know, you look back at that previous wave, and you know, just even thinking about like the history of Vampire and World of Darkness and all that stuff coming out, like things got bananas.
Dude, well, that thing crossed over into the real world. That's when I was like younger, and I was like, I want to move to Texas so I could be part of the actual Vampire Kings crew.
People forget that Vampire the Masquerade, and I was talking to Matt Colville about this a little while ago. People forget that there was a time where after D&D had kind of lapsed into a recession, where we could have seen instead Vampire take its place. This idea of like personal storytelling and angst, and it was around when people were like, yeah, rock and roll is dead and techno is going to take over. And there was a TV show, there was a vampire TV show. People forget that, like that could have been, there's an alternate universe where that became the thing, and we're all sitting around talking about what vampire clan we belong to. That is not the universe we live in.
I want to live in that universe where the D&D of that universe is Vampire the Masquerade. Holy crap.
Right, but the thing is, it still wouldn't be, because Vampire, I think, never got out of the like, we're like a really cool like alternative to D&D. If it had gotten to that popularity point, I think it wouldn't be cool anymore, and would be like, cool, we got vampire breakfast cereal, and we got like all these TV shows. The Marvel Cinematic Universe would be the Vampire the Masquerade cinematic.
Yeah, don't hate on Count Chocula, man.
It'd be a whole thing. So, you know, let's imagine that you can set, next time you need a setting for your alternate universe role-playing game, set it in the world where everybody loves Moby, and we all play, you know, 7th edition Vampire the Masquerade.
Wait, some people don't love Moby? Side note, I just kind of wanted to talk about VTTs in general, just having a hand, I mean, Roll20 having a big hand in the tabletop renaissance in general. Like the fact...
Yeah. I was going to ask, what kind of, based on all of this, one thing that's been really important to all of you guys is making sure that Roll20 is a tabletop platform that can support any number of role-playing games and be catered to even custom things like that. So tell me, Alex, about what makes Roll20 kind of perfect for this tabletop streaming renaissance.
System agnostic. That's what makes it perfect. Yeah, Roll20 at its core is system agnostic, which means it's not tied to any specific RPG system. It runs whatever you want it to run as long as that has a character sheet. And if the character sheet that you want to use is not there, guess what? You can build it, or you can, talk to the community and see if someone can build it or something like that. It's a very collaborative environment. And I think allowing the community to participate like that in a platform and to modify it and to tinker with it to make it do what they want is one of Roll20's biggest strengths. It allows it to just basically let you play whatever you want to play. And the fact that it's browser based allows you to just be able to stream it no matter what your setup, or to be able to play with your friends without having to download programs and update them. It's in your browser. Do you have a browser? Can you go to the link? Can you make a free account? That's it. You can use Roll20. Your friends can be anywhere in the world. You don't have to, there's that big hurdle, which is the herding cats thing that Adam kept telling me when I first joined the job, when he's getting a tabletop crew together, is basically like herding cats. Because everybody's schedules, you need at least a GM and two players, usually more. You need to make everything work. And Roll20 kind of takes one of those hurdles away, which is making everyone stop everything in their lives, leave their homes, assemble in one place to play the game. Now you can just play it from your computer. And most of us are at our computers all the time anyways. So that's what makes it really great.
And I know that Roll20 has kind of been at the center of that movement for a really long time. Nolan, what would you say is Roll20's role in kind of the current state of evolution of tabletop role-playing, even beyond streaming and all that?
I think what's been cool is that our population has, I guess, grown the most, the fastest. And I think the reason for that is the stuff that Alex was just talking about. We are not the first virtual tabletop, and the three Roll20 co-founders, when we started this, we had moved across the country from each other, and playing Halo and trying to talk to each other was not a functional experience. And so we were like, man, it would be nice if we could play Dungeons and Dragons or Settlers of Catan or other things online. And we looked at other options out there, and they were simulators for specific games. You had to download them, and our other friends didn't want to download them. There was port forwarding and technical hurdles that made it oh my gosh, are we ever even going to be able to get into the game? And so, our solution was to take away all of that and to make it, there's a link, you're in, let's play. And easy to use, and mimicking what, every time we came to a design fork, it was, well, we could do this to make certain that it's easier to play a paladin, or we could do this so that it's easier to pass a card across the table. And we went and passed the card across the table, mimicked the real world, and that's really helped. It's allowed it to be something that spreads viral. I think at this point it's around 2,600 new users we get a day, and we do so little advertising for that. It is all, other than the Twitch content that we're putting out there, most of that is organically people just going to each other and being like, "Oh, hey, I need a new player. Get this game." That's absurd.
And that speaks to the nature of role-playing games in general, right?
Yeah.
Where you get a group together, and then if they have a good time, they will want to play more, and they will assemble their own groups, and it spreads. It's a form of interaction that spreads pretty naturally.
It's a virus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear from all of you guys too, as we talk about Roll20 and how it fits into that narrative about the Roll20 community itself, because people who are here watching Roll20Con may be familiar with tabletop role-playing community in general, but maybe they're just being introduced to the Roll20 community. What makes it special? What are its identifying features?
I think everyone.
We're nice.
I mean, that's
I'm not
honestly
even
a large
kidding.
part about it. No, you look at just the group of folks that we have here right now, and we're inviters. That we ask people and we share what our passions are, and that was Richard, Riley, and I at the beginning. It was important to us. One of the early rules for. First off, we didn't think when we started that we needed any sort of looking for group, because we figured everybody had their own group already. And then making that change was one thing. But then after that, we found all this rules lawyering happening on the website, where it's like, I don't like this edition, or I don't like that. And it was like, okay, the rule is now you can only comment on the games that you're actually interested in playing. Otherwise, please go away. Let people do what they want to do and play the way they want to play. And I think that our community has taken those sorts of banner ideas and run with them. And it is so much bigger than any of us could have imagined initially, and it's because of this community and the way that they've responded to these ideas and taken them and made them their own. I think one of the things that is wildest about having this as a live software that just exists out in the world is like the things that people do that we never thought of. I remember somebody porting a card game that they personally had, scanning it in, and it had 30 some different card decks, and I'm just going, what? Like, we didn't think anyone would go this far. And things like that really push us to improve the card deck feature, and so on and so forth. So it really is, we've got an inviting community, and just kind of getting out of the way out of that, or empowering that, has been the guiding star.
I mean, there's also the fact that a lot of the figureheads of tabletop right now online, like Adam included, are all about leading by example, like inviting people to the table, not making it this elitist mindset of if you can't do the math, if you can't do the blah, 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 then you can't play. And of course, like Roll20 and VTTs have kind of taken a lot of the math out, but there are still people who will use it and roll their own dice. So it's kind of like the choice that you make. But the fact that we as leaders or as faces of quote unquote industry try to put our best foot forward and weed out basically these not bad elements, but try to mold the community into where we want it to be, will empower voices that are usually silent to be louder, where usually they would be silenced by bad actors. So what you're really doing is not silencing people, it's allowing those who were already silent, who didn't feel like they were comfortable enough to speak and have their place in this community. And I think that's what Roll20, way before my involvement, way before, since it started with the community managers and whatever, have really succeeded in doing.
Adam, would you say that there are specific identifying factors to the Roll20 community that are unique even within the tabletop gaming community?
I mean, I think a lot of people come to Roll20 because they have their own thing they want to do, or their own way of doing it. Sort of speaking to what Alex and Nolan were saying earlier, the fact that you can play whatever you want on Roll20 makes it a platform to play things you can't find a space or the tools for elsewhere. So it's a really cool place to discover new games. And I think that the people that make up the sort of core Roll20 community tend to be more oriented around like tinkering with things and doing stuff their own way. And I think this is one of those examples of sort of the tool set encouraging the people who improve the tool set to encourage the people, right? So if you are sitting there and you're thinking like, my favorite role-playing game came out in 1992 and nobody's ever played it and nobody will ever play it with me, somebody on Roll20 would be really excited to make a character sheet for that weird game no one has ever heard of, because they also love it. And I think this is sort of a cool future-proofing for Roll20, in that as people become more cognizant of other games, they're going to be looking for tools to play those other games online. And we are here with arms open, being like, we love your weird game. Come check it out. Come try this new thing on Roll20. We've already got 3 people arguing over the best way to make a character sheet for it. So please come and contribute your opinion and try it out. So I really like that about it, that like, even for me, when I'm interested in playing a game and there isn't a sheet for it, or I have a problem with the existing like fan-made sheets, I know that I can just jump into the community and be like, hey, so I could like, I know this is like a thing I don't understand because I'm not a programmer, but like if someone could help me change the way this sheet works, or like add this thing for my game, everyone is just so eager to help out, to be like, yes, totally, I'm in, let me do it. It'll take me 5 minutes. I know how to do this thing. There's a lot of skill sharing that goes on the forums that I think is super cool.
Well, we only have a few minutes before we get to move into the Character Mancer demo, but let's get in our feels real quick, just for a minute, because I want to talk about your guys' hopes and dreams for the future of Roll20 and tabletop gaming. Just to start things off with this beautiful Roll20CON weekend, what are you guys hoping as you look into the future that you'll see in terms of growth?
Growth? I mean, that's always just that the train doesn't stop. I think that's something for 6 years. I've been waking up and waiting for suddenly everyone just doesn't show up. And in my mind, it's about, just kind of meeting the amount of people who are showing up with our efforts and making certain that we're continuing to develop cool things and to fix bugs and to add new areas to play in and new programming as well to watch. It's a matter of just kind of like, as Adam said earlier, we're on a wave right now as an entire industry, and we've got a lot of responsibility within that wave. And to me, that feels like what the next few years are going to be, is just kind of working with that responsibility and continuing to open up the platform for more folks.
What about you, Alex and Adam?
Go ahead, Adam.
I mean, I think we're starting to see the beginnings of what I hope to see for the sort of foreseeable future of Roll20 and for tabletop gaming in general. Like I see people releasing starting Kickstarters for their new games, and they're saying as a stretch goal or as part of the Kickstarter, they're like, well, Roll20 character sheet comes with the thing. We're going to hire somebody to make a cool looking character sheet so you can play it online. It's becoming more and more a given that this is a space in which people want to engage with tabletop role playing. And I think what's going to be really cool is when people start to design games with that in mind. We're starting to see little bits and pieces of this stuff where people are like, oh, people want to play this on the internet, so I better make my game work that way. And also they might want to play with an audience, so let me build in stuff to help them do that successfully. And that is super exciting to me. There's going to be games in the next year or two that we're going to see that have explicit ideas about how to make this sing in a staged environment, whatever that looks like.
Wait, like Twitch integration, but for
right?
Wow,
yeah,
that would be so good.
Sure, and there are already games, and we've played a few on Roll20 games like Tenor Bancho Zero that have mechanics designed for the players to encourage each other. There will be ways to turn that over to the audience to say, if you really like so and so's performance, do you click this button, and there'll be an overlay, and you can click it for them, and they'll get like a boost for the next scene. And there are people experimenting with this both in the tabletop space and in the Twitch space, but I want to see a game explicitly written to be played, or to have a module explicitly allowing it to be played on Twitch with an audience to make it fun in a way that it was designed for. So we're not just kind of like trying to force games that don't have that in mind. But again, we're at the forefront of this stuff. So I think that the next couple of years are going to be really exciting, really interesting as people start to get comfortable enough to experiment.
Yeah, I just want to keep Roll20 kind and weird, because that's what it is right now. And that's, as we move forward, I'd want us to just not forget who we are and not forget where it started, which is a group of friends just trying to find a way to play together. And I just want it to stay about that inclusive, kind, weird space where you can try whatever and be good to each other. And the only rule is, the internet rule, don't be a dick.
I like kind and weird. I feel like I can totally get behind that. I feel like that definitely works for most of us around here. Well, this conversation's been great. I feel like I said, we could rap about this all day and geek out about it because this is what we all love. But I know we have the Charactermancer demo coming right up, right, Alex?
Yep, that is true. Probably gonna take a 5-minute break so that everybody can hydrate and take it easy, and then we'll be back, I guess, unless anyone has like some sign-off words they want. Nolan's mustache, anything you want to add?
It's good. It's good.
That's good. All right.
Well, thank you guys for sharing all of this insight with us. I can't wait to come back and try out Charactermancer, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.